The Chinese automotive industry is struggling with oversupply. That's why brands from the Middle Kingdom, names of which you previously never heard of, are now eagerly entering the European market through all channels, including Japanese showrooms where this new Mazda 6e is on display. It is an EV developed in collaboration with China's Changan. How much Mazda is in the Changan, or perhaps how much Changan is in this Mazda? Let's find out.
Feel like summer in Ibiza, tastes like honey when I see ya. I can't help it, I'm obsessing. Oh my God, I wanna feel ya. Watermelon, sugar sweet, now we're sitting on the beach. I can't help it, I'm obsessing. Oh my God, I wanna feel you right. Do you feel the way that I feel now? Done, set, breeze, get closer to me now.
The Chinese are entering Europe today, just as European and American car makers once entered China. The Mazda 6e, based on the Deepal L7 and Changan Nivo A07 models, is a product of a Changan-Mazda joint venture formerly called Changan-Ford-Mazda. Today Mazda desperately needs electric cars because of climate regulations, and the MX-30, priced like the CX-5 with the range of a only slightly cheaper BMW scooter, somehow didn't quite catch on. But if I hadn't known about the Chinese influence, looking at the 6e from the outside, I would have never suspected it wasn't a project meticulously designed in Hiroshima. It's got Kodo, the soul of motion, oozing from every angle, and I say this without a hint of irony. I'd even go as far as to say the Mazda 6e looks like a late-stage concept car. So if you've always dreamed of driving off the showroom floor in a car that looks like you stole it of a car show stage, you have a chance to buy the future of motoring for the price of a well-equipped Mazda CX-30. Measuring 492 centimeters in length, the Mazda 6e is approximately 5 centimeters longer than the combustion engine model it replaces. It's also 5 centimeters wider, now measuring 189 centimeters. Height has increased by just 3.5 centimeters to 148.5 centimeters, likely at the expense of ground clearance as the battery is located in the floor. The wheelbase has grown by 6.5 centimeters to 289.5 centimeters. In terms of dimensions, the Mazda 6e is very close to the Audi A6 e-tron, which has a wheelbase another 6.5 centimeters longer, but other dimensions are similar. In China, this model is called the Mazda EZ6, and in addition to the pure electric version, there is also a variant with a petrol range extender, which lives under the bonnet. In Europe, we get the Mazda 6 only as a rear-wheel drive EV, so there's a 72-liter frunk here. Mazda has placed a basket here made of something resembling felt. The basket can be removed, then the false floor can also be removed, and then you get all of the 72 liters. At the bottom is a drain plug, so you can rinse the frunk after storing your dirty shoes here, or fill it with ice and chilled drinks, or I don't know, do you have any ideas? Moving on, the boot, which according to Mazda has 336 liters in 5-seat configuration or 466 liters including underfloor storage. However, boot dimensions Mazda provides suggest otherwise, and they don't match my measurements either. According to my calculations, the boot volume is around 400 liters from the floor to the parcel shelf in 5-seat configuration. If you need to carry something specific, I suggest you take it with you for a test drive. Other than that, there is not much going on here. Besides the aforementioned underfloor storage compartment, which houses a repair kit, there's also a button to close the tailgate. Only one, because the Chinese don't seem to like buttons. However, pressing this button twice closes the lid and locks the car. And it kind of makes sense. But you can also do the same thing using the Mazda 6e app. The app can also replace the key, and you can use it for things like raising or lowering the spoiler. The spoiler can also be programmed to raise to greet you as you approach the car, and all Porsche owners just got an erection. In the vehicle settings, you can also specify whether and under what circumstances the spoiler should open and close, if at all. Leave it open, like in a Porsche. What's happening in the rear seat? There are door pockets. There's plenty of legroom behind the driver's seat. Set to my driving position, I'm 175 centimeters tall. Headroom is adequate for me, but not necessarily for taller passengers. The floor is flat. In the center there is a single USB port, controls for the third zone climate control, and in the top trim you also get controls for the panoramic sunroof blind and a button to move the front passenger seat to increase rear legroom. This is typical in Chinese cars, as being chauffeured is considered a sign of prestige in that market. Another Chinese touch is the armrest, which is difficult to pull out. A short strap would suffice to pull it out, rather than me having to squeeze my fingers between the armrest and the backrest. Backrest splits 40-60. ISOFIX anchor points are available not only on the rear seat, but also on the front passenger seat. The Mazda 6e's cockpit is minimalistic to the extreme. This, again, is clearly a Chinese design, as despite the abundance of leather and velour, you operate virtually everything from the central display. Just because Tesla does it, doesn't mean it's a good idea. From the beginning of 2026, in order to qualify for a 5-star Euro NCAP test rating, a certain set of functions must be controlled by physical switchgear. So this includes, for example, the hazard lights, the horn, or the windshield wipers. But while the spirit of the recommendations is clear, the implementation is less so. The wipers in the Mazda 6e can be activated by pressing a button on the turn signal stock, which has been clearly taken from Mercedes parts bin. However, controlling the wiper speed requires you using the touchscreen. Alternatively, the wipers can be assigned to one of the programmable buttons on the steering wheel, or can be activated by voice control. And what was wrong with a switch that allows you to change the mode and frequency manually?
Same thing with saving the seat settings. Instead of memory buttons on the doors or the seat, you have to click through an on-screen menu. It's not so bad if a short driver gets in the car after a taller driver left. It's worse if it's the other way around. And it's certainly possible to assign seat memory positions to a profile and link it to a key or a phone or activate it with your voice, but wouldn't it be easier to do it with buttons instead? On the plus side, the climate control settings are always at the bottom of the screen, along with shortcuts to the car's settings menu. The main screen has widgets for navigation, recently used apps and media, as well as a visualization of the car's exterior and interior, making it easier to find various settings. The voice assistant, if activated intentionally, usually understands what you're saying, but it's all too easy to activate it accidentally, and then before you know it, the navigation system takes you to the first thing that sounds like something you said. Once you've played around with the infotainment system, you'll probably get used to it, even if some functions are awkwardly placed in menus where you'd least expect them. The harder part, however, is getting used to constantly wiping the screen and the piano black buttons on the steering wheel. Besides that, there are decent door pockets, a powerful wireless charger, good cup holders, a large cooled storage compartment under the armrest, and a medium-sized glove box. There's a cubby under the console, featuring 2 USB ports and a 12-volt outlet. There is no push-button start. Mazda 6e is ready to go the moment you unlock the doors.
If you're an existing Mazda customer considering the 6e, you may be wondering, can one still feel Jinbai Tai, the horse and rider as one? Absolutely not. While Mazda does state in its press release that engineers in Japan and Germany refined the 6e with European customers in mind, that only leads me to wonder how bad must the Changan be if this is what we get after the refinements? I'm not saying the Mazda 6e rides and handles below average, especially when we include Chinese car makers into the mix. No, it simply doesn't ride and handle like a Mazda. First of all, the suspension is busy over bumps. While reviewing the 6e, I'm also driving the Mercedes-Benz CLA, a compact model, also an EV, and over there it doesn't feel like each wheel is trying to figure out how to behave relative to the rest of the car over bumps. I know, I'm exaggerating, but that was my first impression when I drove the Mazda 6e from the press office onto one of bumpy Warsaw streets. Secondly, the driver's assistance systems feel the same as those found in most Asian brands a few years ago. That is, they disturb rather than help. The horse and rider are not one because the horse can't decide whether to change lanes or stay in them.
By the way, disabling ESA requires a few clicks on the screen. The easiest way is to disable all sign recognition in one go. Otherwise, you have to disable the speed limit notification and the speed limit change notification separately, leaving sign recognition enabled. However, the speed limits can also be displayed independently on the navigation map. Thirdly, for such an advanced car, there is no adaptive recuperation. Recuperation level can be set to strong or medium depending on the driving mode. Alternatively, you can adjust some settings in the individual mode, but not recuperation that adapts to traffic or the road ahead. The soundproofing is average, however visibility is surprisingly good both around the A-pillars and to the rear, especially considering the steeply sloping roofline.
The range is also good. The Mazda 6e is offered in 2 battery and powertrain options, though these are unusual configurations. Typically, a larger battery and range imply faster charging and better performance, but in the Mazda 6e, the opposite is true. The Mazda 6e with standard range, the one I'm reviewing, has an LFP battery with a capacity of just under 69 kilowatt-hours, 258 horsepower, and a range of up to 605 kilometers in the urban cycle or 479 kilometers in the combined cycle. Maximum charging power is 165 kilowatts, and charging from 10 to 80% takes 24 minutes under optimal conditions. The Mazda 6e with extended range, on the other hand, has 80 kilowatt-hours NMC battery, 245 horsepower, and a range of up to 692 kilometers in the urban cycle or 552 in the combined cycle. The maximum charging power is only 90 kilowatts, and charging from 10 to 80% takes 47 minutes.
The price difference is small enough to compensate for the poor charging performance of the extended range model. But assuming the cars can travel 350 and 400 kilometers on the motorway respectively, the extra range won't compensate for the time wasted by the charging station. And how much real-world range does the standard range Mazda 6e have? In my unscientific combined cycle, I achieved around 16 kilowatt-hours per 100 kilometers, which is consistent with the manufacturer's specifications. This gives a real-world range of around 430 kilometers without fast motorway driving. The promised 0 to 100 km per hour time is 7.6 seconds. In sport and normal modes, I achieved plus or minus 7 seconds. Top speed is limited to 175 km per hour, but due to the driver assist systems, you don't want to drive this fast anyway. Furthermore, the adaptive cruise control only works up to 130 km per hour. Price of the Mazda 6e start at €44,900 for the standard range model. Extended range costs €1,600 more. Better add another €400 and get the top trim like this one. With optional paint, this car costs €48,100.
In terms of design, the Mazda 6e shines when compared to logs like the VW ID.7 or the Mercedes-Benz EQE. Range is okay, at least in autumn when the weather is still moderate. However, as far as software is concerned, you can feel the Chinese engineering, and software is what makes or breaks a deal with a car like this. I'm not a fan. But how do you like the Mazda 6e? Do you think it's a step in the right direction, or maybe it's a last moment to get an MX-5 and enjoy what's left of Jinbai Tai? Let me know in the comment section below.
If you like my sarcastic, down-to-earth and possibly mildly amusing car reviews, join me every Friday at 3 p.m. Central European Time, and don't forget to subscribe and like this video as it helps me with the YouTube algorithm. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.